Alright, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chris Buckle's Album Club. Now today, as usual of course, we're going to be doing two albums randomly picked from a list of submissions by each one of us, and of course at the end we will reveal who picked those, but not before we all give our thoughts on the album and listen to them, of course. The albums. So today with me as usual I have Ben.
Woke up, fell out of bed, dragged the comb across my head.
When you said fell out of bed, you sounded like unduly angry.
Well, maybe,
Maybe he is.
Well, I'm happy to be awake.
Maybe he is angry, just a little. Alright, and we also have Matthew.
Mustard.
A very interesting and very insightful commentary. Thank you, Matthew. And also, we have Fan.
Mean Mister.
He is truly a mean Mr. Mustard. Thank you, Fan. Alright, well, you all ready to hear what today's two albums are?
As I ever will be.
Well, it doesn't sound too enthusiastic, but after that last pairing, who can blame him? Alright, well, today's albums are... we're actually going to be having an interesting pairing. This one may be more one-sided than the last one, or it may be less one-sided. We'll see. Probably more. Today's albums are George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, album that I know at least me, Ben, and Matthew are all pretty familiar with, and Back in Black by AC/DC. Pretty random pairing, but they're both very highly commercially successful albums, so it's not like we're doing anything obscure this time. We're only going with, like, A-listers or S-listers, so this is all, like, big, massive albums. So, initial impressions, we're starting with you, Ben.
So All Things Must Pass is just an excellent album, though it does get a little excessive on the Fjord LP. But, I mean, that is like almost like a prelude to Derek and the Dominoes. But the first two LPs of it are all, I think, only good songs. Obviously, they're better and worse ones, but it all sounds excellent, so... I already have pretty extensive knowledge of All Things Must Pass. All Things Must Pass. Back in Black by AC/DC, I don't think I've listened through as like an album, but a lot of the songs on it are singles. It had 4 famous singles. I obviously know all of them. Right. So those... Wait, Shoot to Thrill was not a single? Okay, well, I guess Shoot to Thrill was not a single.
Matthew's whooped our minds.
There were 5 songs on here, but I'm pretty sure. Although, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution, I'm less sure on. But Hills Bells, Shoot to Thrill, Back in Black, and You Shook Me All Night Long are all songs I know fairly well. I can just summon in my head.
Shoot the Thrill was not a single.
Yeah, I know. It's weird that it wasn't a single. Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution was not a single, which... I mean, I have probably heard, but I'm not exactly sure. But those 4 songs I listed, the 3 other singles plus Shoot to Thrill, I obviously know pretty well. So... it's not like this album feels obscure to me either, at all. Some of those songs, they do go quite hard. I do tend to lean towards George Harrison in terms of music. I think it's more, I would guess it's probably more sustainable in the sense of the 3 LPs of George Harrison / Derek and the Dominoes and that Fjord LP. Is probably would be less tiring than listening to 3 LPs in a row of AC/DC. But because this is a single LP album, I don't think that will probably be a problem. I don't know. I mean, I suspect these will be somewhat hard to compare, but who knows?
Matthew.
I am very well acquainted with the works of both George Harrison and the greatest bands that ever come from down under, AC/DC. Um, George Harrison is my favorite Beatle. Um, he's a man that I have related to in my old age. This album, All Things Must Pass, I consider is the best solo Beatles album. Like it's not even close. As for AC/DC, this is a band I have known ever since I saw probably the first Iron Man or maybe the second Iron Man, and this is what I consider their best work. So I'm very, very excited to talk about both of them.
Before we go on to fan, I just want to say the best band from Down Under is actually the Vinyls. Alright, we're moving on to you, fan. What are your initial impressions on this pairing?
First off, the best band for Down Under is actually Midnight Oil. And second off, I think this pairing is pretty interesting. You know, it's just I don't think it's as interesting as last times, but this one should be, you know, I mean, it's all fairly well known stuff. Uh, I listened to Back in Black a lot as a kid. I haven't listened to AC/DC probably voluntarily in maybe about 10 years, save for listening to Night Prowler, because I like that song a lot. That's probably my favorite AC/DC song, unrelated, but this one should be pretty cool. Of course, George Harrison. I'm a big fan of George Harrison. I think he's some of my favorite Beatles songs. Of course, everybody knows All Things Must Pass, so it'll be fun to sit down and listen to both of them.
Alright, well, as for me, never listened to the full AC/DC album, but I know basically all the songs a bit new from Back in Black. Never really got the feel of AC/DC. I mean, some of the songs are fine or enjoyable enough, but it's pretty, I always find to be kind of like lowest common denominator rock music. Yeah, it's better than like something I actively dislike, like Kiss or whatever, but it's never really thrilled me that much. My favorite AC/DC song is probably For Those About Rock We Salute You, because I do kind of like the lyrics of that one, but even that I wouldn't say really blows me away. But who knows, maybe I'll change my mind after listening to this album, although considering I know a large portion of its songs already, it would probably have to take something pretty major on those remaining songs I don't know to actually do that, so we'll see, I guess. I certainly don't expect to hate it. I expect to have kind of a similar reaction to it as I had to the Eagles, being just like, yeah, there it is, it's fine. It's enjoyable enough, but it's not really something that I really particularly want as an album. It's just like pretty good songs when they come on the radio. Not amazing, but pretty solid. As for All Things Must Pass, I have it on vinyl. Original copy of the box is a bit beat up, but that's fine. Great album, and has several great songs. In particular, it has my favorites are What Is Life, and of course, If Not For You, the George cover of the Bob Dylan song. That's a great song. And very importantly, we must remember that it's the song that Ben said had boredness. Okay? Ben said that song had boredness, and now there's been an ongoing joke here on this channel about songs having boredness, and it all stems from something Ben originally said about If Not For You from this album, All Things Must Pass. So, if either of you don't understand why sometimes we randomly start cracking up about boredness, it was in an episode on Covers, Ben said something about boredness, about George Harrison. So, you know who else has a song boredness, Ben? Big Board from Sesame Street.
True.
He literally is a bard.
All of this board in particular has boldness.
He literally is a bard. I bet that blew your mind. He has a certain boldness to him.
It's true.
But all things must pass. Great album. I usually don't allow triple albums on here, but I'm gonna be honest. Whenever whoever submitted this, I forgot it was a triple album because I must admit I do tend to forget about the Fjord LP, and when I do talk about Fjord LP, I do say that probably should have been left out. We've got a good band behind it, but you could see the good band on all the songs that have lyrics and stuff, and not just random jamming too. It's really probably shouldn't have been included. Alright, we're going to go listen to these albums now, and we will be right back with our thoughts on them. We've already given a lot of our thoughts right now, so we'll see if we actually have anything different to say once we come back. Alright, we've got a list of the albums, and we are now back to give our thoughts on them. First album was All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, and as usual, we will be starting with you, Ben. What are your thoughts on this album?
So this album is obviously excellent. It is a very long, to be short album. Sometimes we complain about albums being long on here. They are not as long as this. Clocking in at 106 minutes. Though, as was noted earlier, the last 5 tracks on sides 5 and 6 of the EP
LP.
or jams. Though you can't hear George Harrison clearly in them. They are often said to be functionally delicate and dominant songs. I don't know if I really agree with that, but anyway, to focus on the main meat of the album, so to speak. I would say every song on side 1, I'd Have You Anytime, which is a Bob Dylan co-written song with George Harrison. My Sweet Lord, which is obviously a very famous song about George Harrison's religious experiences, his worship of God. He starts out as thinking it very Christian sound, hallelujah, says originally from Judaism, but then moves into Holy Krishna. But it has kind of this syncretic or maybe even universalistic expression to it. And also very excellent. Very excellent guitar solo. Wah wah, I don't need your wah wah is a song that's clearly about the Beatles breaking up. He wrote it during his brief breaking up with the Beatles during the Get Back sessions. So it's kind of like, I don't need all this fussing, whatever. But if you watched Get Back, the Peter Jackson thing, a good chunk of that fussing at the time that he left was by him. So that does need to be worked on. And then Isn't It a Pity, which I believe was written at the same time as Wah Wah. Well, he was on break from the Beatles. Is that right? I think that's right. Alright, side 2 also continues on this excellent track. With What Is Life? Probably the best song on this album. If Not For You, which is a cover of Bob Dylan. And the song does have a sort of boldness to it. Behind Vince, a couple, the softer song Behind That Locked Door. And then Let It Down, which is a rather intensive, erotic song. But it even then also has kind of a, slight religious edge to it. On the second second EP, the songs I would like to highlight are All Things Must Pass, the title track that is excellent. I Dig Love, even if it's kind of funny. And then Isn't It a Pity Vulture 2, which continues on Isn't It a Pity by some piece of it. Well, actually, it looks like Isn't It a Pity was written in 1966, huh? I associate that with the time that he went on hiatus. I know that the song All Things Must Pass was written during a stint he was staying with the band, and I believe in Clapton, maybe? That sounds right. People can correct me if they know better. Well, I know All Things Must Pass had been considered for inclusion on Get Back. It was very proud to that. But I was thinking Isn't It a Pity was directly about the breakup, but it seems to be actually prior to that. So Wild Wild must be the only song in that specific category of that specific time I was thinking of. Anyway, altogether, this is an excellent album. It has a lot of depth to it. As should be noted, and I'm sure Matthew will go into more detail, has this very religious experience influence to it. It dives pretty deeply into spirituality, both in terms of lyrics, but also in terms of how the instrumentation and production goes. This album is produced by, besides George, the infamous producer Phil Spector, who nevertheless makes this album sound really excellent. You know, he is very good at what he did, even if other things were not so nice. But altogether, an excellent album. Even if the last jams probably should have been some separate thing. I don't know. I don't hate them. They all actually felt like good, but they were not really essential to the album.
Matthew.
This album is an excellent album. I said it before and I'll say it again. This is the best solo Beatles record. Uh, there's no denying that. That didn't mean that John didn't produce pretty decent work. Double Fantasy, Imagine, and even if I didn't care for that much, Plastic Ono Band, and Paul did like a couple of Wings, and even Ram and McCartney one. They don't go. They aren't. They don't come as close to almost perfection as this album. This was like basically years of George like holding in some of his best work, but basically Paul and John kind of undermined him and kind of said, well, you can only do X amount of songs. And and while sure John and Paul are like two of the greatest songwriters, and especially the greatest songwriter duo of all time, they definitely screwed the pooch with um, with like undermining George, and I think that was clear when he released when you consider some of the best Beatles songs, maybe top 5, maybe top 10, like you will probably find some George songs While My Guitar Gently Weeps, something, which is probably the greatest love song of all time, and Here Comes the Sun. But with this album, it's just like it has a lot of strong tracks. I'll Have You Anytime. My personal favorite song in the album, which is My Sweet Lord, which is basically, while it does fundamentally come through George's Hindu faith, which is like very evident when you know about George. He was the most religious Beatle, like in terms of believing in a religion. Has a very universalist appeal to it, and as George said, that all religions are branches of one big tree. It doesn't matter what you call him, just as long as you call And even as for me, who's someone who does not share the same religion as George, but is himself a religious person, I find the message of "My Sweet Lord" and even especially "Hear Me, Lord" like very um, like compelling and something that I could feel. Like I could like almost experience the same things as George did. But outside of that, like there's a lot of great tracks like "Wah Wah," "Isn't It a Pity," "What Is Life," um, "Beware of Darkness," the title track, "I Dig Love." Um, this is just like a masterful work, and I can't say enough good things about it.
Fan.
Um, I mean, much like Matthew, there's not enough good things to say about this record. This is really, I mean, technically this is his third solo album. And not discrediting the first two. There's some cool electronic stuff, some cool like Indian inspired music on the first one. The second one was electronic, avant-garde experimental. This is really, I think, generally accepted as the first one, though. This is the first real serious. Not that the other ones aren't serious, but this is the first like real record putting out like this is the one that's really George's work to everyone to show this is what I can do as an artist. And he over delivers, you could say. Um, there's so much great music on this. I mean, song after song. I think throughout the first four sides is amazing stuff. Apple Jam, that third LP, I love it. It's great. It's just good musicians cooking, and there's not much better than that. Of course, it was famously a bonus disc, so it did not cost any more to the record buyer. It was just a more bang for your buck for the same price as a double album. So generally considered it is just a bonus disc. So you can rate it if you want. You don't have to. I think there's merit to it. But at the end of the day, it did not cost any more money. It was just a bonus for the consumer to make them more willing to buy a double album, which is very nice of them to do. I think that's great. Um, I think each side has amazing songs. Uh, I mean, My Sweet Lord, Wah Wah, Isn't It a Pity, Let It Down, Behind the Locked Door, All Things Must Pass, Beware the Darkness. Uh, both is, I mean, side four, probably my favorite side. I dig Love Out of Dying, Isn't It a Pity, and Heal Me Lord. Uh, my hot take, I think Heal Me Lord is probably the best song ever written by a Beatle. I think the everything down to each individual note is perfect. Phil Spector's wall of sound makes it massive. It's huge. Uh, and major points to Billy Preston with that haunting four note piano lick he's doing over and over again that just adds so much just kind of hauntingness. And I think that any song about things like very personal, very introspective songs. I mean, obviously, religion is going to do that, and I think it's a great uh, way, a great theme for the song. I mean, I think that's out of the entire Beatles extended discography, the Beatles cinematic universe, if you will. I think this is probably the best song, and also arguably, there's a strong case you can make that this is the best album out of every thing that the Beatles have done as a band or a solo. It's this album is ridiculously strong, and I think George really showed that he is maybe the best songwriter. Maybe he is the genius of the Beatles. You don't know.
Maybe he was the best Beatle after all.
I mean, for my money, he was.
I agree.
Excuse me. Um, it's my turn. Usually when we get to me, everyone else has already spoken, so I don't have nearly as much to say as a lot of people because a lot of my talking points have usually been taken. So I'm going to keep it kind of quick here. Favorite songs on this album, or What Is Life, and If Not For You, probably. If Not For You, that's a Bob Dylan song, great, though version by George, better vocal than what Dylan had, and also great guitar on that. What Is Life, once again, another great one, great production, just great songwriting. I'm not a particularly religious person, so I don't feel as deeply, I guess, for the religious stuff of this album. However, they're all well delivered, well sung. The Fjord LP, I do think, is kind of not my favorite. Generally, don't listen to it when I listen to the rest of the album, just because, like, sometimes I do, but sometimes, like, not every time, because it's just, it is what it is. Do I care if it's Johnny's birthday or not? Not really. Just not really my favorite, so they also, I think it's kind of a bit underwhelming, the Fjord disc, but first two are good. Oh yeah, and then my third favorite song of the album is probably the title track, All Things Must Pass. Forgot to say that, but it's great too. So yeah, no, it's really good album. I still think of it as more of a double album than as a triple album, as I said at the beginning of this video. And we listening to it for the umpteenth time hasn't changed that opinion particularly, but other than that, yeah, thumbs up all around. Alright, the next album was Back in Black by AC/DC. And we're back to the top. We're going back to you, Ben. What are your thoughts on this album?
I thought this album was pretty solid. I think that the standout tracks were the ones I already knew, which all like, well, Bells Bells, Shoot the Thrill, Back and Back, and of course, and this is really the standout track of this whole album, You Shook Me All Night Long. The other tracks, What Do You Do for Money, Honey, Giving the Dog a Bone, Let Me Put My Love Into You, that was pretty decent. Have a Drink on Me, and Shake a Leg, and Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. That last of which I believe was a single. They were alright. Like, I enjoyed listening to them. I think of the best of them, it's like, one, Let Me Put My Love Into You, then two, maybe Have a Drink on Me. Of those tracks I had not mentioned earlier. But really, what stands out is the strength of something like You Shook Me All Night Long, or Back in Black. AC/DC is definitely not like my favorite band, but they do have a sort of niche that they can hit hard and be fun in. They could get away with a lot more sleazy lyrics than a lot of bands. I mean, both bands have very sleazy lyrics, don't get me wrong. Looking at you, Motley Crue. But frankly, Motley Crue doesn't really get away with it to me in the same way, and for other people they definitely do. In the same way that AC/DC can. Right, so yeah, I think it's somewhat sleazy. It's a little bit less bad, I think, than some of the Motley Crue stuff though, but I think they make it fun enough that it doesn't matter. Shoot to thrill. Anyway.
I didn't want you to end it. Who went to analysis with the board anyways? It makes it sound like you're about to say something else.
Anyways, this album is good and fun. I don't know.
Okay. Alright, Matthew.
This album is an album that is dear to me, and it is an album that has one goal and one goal only, and it's one that I deeply respect. This album kicks ass. It is a very kick-ass album. Um, my favorite tracks is "You Shook Me All Night Long," "Shoot to Thrill," a song that has been dear to me ever since I was a wee lad. I remember watching the first Avengers movie, and that song played in the movie, and I was like, "This song kicks ass." It still kicks ass. Um, you know, honestly, I think Back in Black is kind of overrated in a sense, but it still is a fantastic song. Hell's Bells, Have a Drink on Me, Shake a Leg, Rock and Roll ain't Noise Pollution are really good. These are very like dude, like these are very much songs you play with your boys or your girls. It doesn't matter your gender. Like having your friends over and just like having a rollicking good time. Um, and yeah, I've been well, so like I knew. Uh, I knew ACDC for like a long time, and um, they're my favorite band that comes from the down under, and can't say enough good things about it.
Fan.
This album's great. This is one that I used to listen to a fair amount back in my younger days. Maybe like some 15, 18 years ago or so. It was a great introductory album to rock music, and that's not to say that you necessarily outgrow these songs, because there's still some all-timer songs. I mean, I hadn't heard Back in Black in a while. I was like, I never need to hear that song again. And then when listening to it, I'm like, wow, this is better than I remember. This is just a really well-written song. You Shook Me All Night Long, Rock and Roll Ain't No Noise Pollution, Have a Drink on Me, What You For Money, Honey, Shoot the Thrill. I mean, pretty much there's only like 2 songs off this record that I didn't actively remember. Uh, Shake a Leg and Give the Dog a Bone. Um, Shake a Leg was really the only song I thought was kind of not great, and Hell's Bells, arguably the band's best song. Like, what a masterpiece. That riff Angus plays, it's haunting, What's such a perfect tribute to Bon Scott, this whole album. I'm sure he would have absolutely loved this. Of course, you could argue that this album wouldn't have happened without him. Obviously, they don't write Hell Spells, they don't write Back in Black without him dying. Um, and those are the band's maybe 2 most known songs. I don't know, Thunderstruck might edge out Hell's Bells. I don't think it edges out Back in Black. Those 2 are probably on the same level, but Thunderstruck is nowhere near as good as those songs, or the songs on this record. Is it better than early AC/DC? There's an argument to be had. This is probably about the end of the real classic era, even though this, of course, doesn't. Even though this has a new singer, this still very much is put into that all-time AC/DC thing. From the debut all the way through this one. Usually the classics era ends with the one of the main people leaving, obviously. Well, in this case, dying, unfortunately. But I think this one fits in well into that category. I think on the next album, there's still great stuff. Obviously, it's not like, for those about the rock, actually, that is one of my favorite AC/DC songs, title track to the next record. Of course, same songwriters. It's not like Bon Scott was doing any of the writing, really, but his charisma, his voice, of course, very important. But like I said, still very much a part of that classic era. This is probably the end of that. They would go on to not necessarily make worse music, but I don't think it would all be as complete as this album. This is great. This is just fun. Angus Lips on it. That's his thing. It's fun. This is fun music. This is you put on with the boys, like Matthew said. And just vibe. Great album.
Alright, well, once again, we're back to me. I said at the beginning of this video, my opinion of AC/DC is they make decently pleasing, but awful kind of standard kind of rock music for, like, kind of just classic rock radio. I mean, obviously they weren't making it for classic rock radio. It was obviously modern rock at the time, but still, it's kind of just what it is. It's a very kind of standard kind of sound that I find personally kind of boring. And this didn't really change my opinion. I mean, all of the songs sound like AC/DC. And they certainly had a very consistent sound. And the quality of the songs is pretty consistent. I mean, none of them blow me away. None of them really particularly annoy me or get on my nerves or I particularly dislike any. I don't particularly dislike any of them. It's just all kind of samey, which is both kind of the greatest strength and the greatest flaw here. None of them were bad. Well, that's good. It's good not to have bad songs on your album. None of them were really that amazing. I mean, I kind of like Shoot to Thrill and You Shook Me All Night Long, but still, it's just everything here is just pretty similar, and it all just sounds like something that kind of comes on like the classic rock radio, like in between like the few very good, like really good songs they play. They have some of it kind of like the kind of secondary tier, or in some cases pleasing enough like this, or in some cases bad, not like this, but sometimes they do. Something like Def Leppard, but in this case it's just, I mean, is what it is. It sounds kind of like radio, kind of, just kind of, I don't know, it just sounds a little bit samey and a little bit generic to me. So, I mean, it was good enough while it lasted. I mean, it's a, kind of inoffensive sound, and I will say it was more consistent than, like, the Eagles. We did an album by the Eagles a while back, and that's another band I consider to be kind of in the same tier of kind of the samey kind of just kind of classic rock radio singly kind of sounding stuff. This is a bit more consistent than that, a bit better just overall, but wasn't blown away by it really. So that's basically my thoughts on the band AC/DC as a whole. It was just kind of alright. Alright, and now we're moving on to which album each one of us like better. I have a suspicion how this is going to go. So we're going to start with you, Ben. Which album did you like better?
All Things Must Pass.
Matthew.
All things must pass.
I keep turning you down and you keep getting louder. Alright, Fan.
I'm going with George here.
Yeah, and obviously I am also going with All Things Must Pass. I don't think too surprising of a result, but All Things Must Pass has kind of won this matchup unanimously. Of course, it's no knock, particularly against the other album. I mean, we weren't really doing anything super competitive with, who wins what, but it's just, sometimes we have unanimous pairings. I mean, we have certainly had quite a few of them now, but they're still a little uncommon. They're less common than us having like 3-1 or something, so there's usually at least one dissenter. So, kind of interesting to see, although in this case I don't think anything else was ever going to win, so pretty much, I mean, maybe if we had like Abbey Road or something, but versus All Things Must Pass, but we didn't, so that was a different episode, so yeah. Now on to who picked what album. Does anyone want to take a guess as to who picked what?
I'm gonna go. Matthew picked the Jordan Taylor's exactly, and Ben picked the AC/DC album.
Okay, well, he's half right. Matthew picked Off Maximus Pass. Matthew also picked Back in Black. So both these albums were picked by Matthew.
That was my other guess. Damn it.
Yeah. Oof. Well, I can't all get them right, well, except for me, but I already know always, so I don't I don't guess. But you win some, you lose some. Alright, well that's about it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing our thoughts on these albums. Please be sure to like and subscribe, that helps us out a lot. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you in the next episode.